Hello and welcome to this workshop, which is called A Live Repair with John McRory, which happens to be me. I'm a volunteer fixer at Repair Café Wales, which I should introduce. So also, I wonder if it would be good to see, just before I go into that, how many people are currently in the room and kind of interacting with the session, I guess. So if you are in the room, it would be great. There's a chat box in the bottom right. It'd be great if you could say hi. And if at any point during the webinar, if you have any questions, you can just enter them in there. Because what we go over today is we're going to be doing quite a specific repair, but you might have other questions which are kind of more general to repairing or kettles, say, because that's the subject of our repair today. So please do use the chat box down in the bottom right if you are able. Now, one moment. Just going to check something on my little schedule that I've written for myself. Okay, so thanks for joining me today. Like I said, Repair Café Wales is where I volunteer, and I have a colleague called Grant who should be joining me. He's another volunteer, but they're just trying to get him into the session at the moment. And basically, we fix things for people for free. That's the whole goal of the project, right? The goal is to reduce landfill use, but we do that by fixing things for people. And we do it normally once a month in different areas all across Wales. And we've got a really lovely a group of volunteers with lots of different skills. So we have people who can repair clothes, repair bikes, repair household electronics, computers. So quite a wide range of different things, basically anything you'd find around the house. And the way it works is that if something breaks, you just kind of keep it on the side and bring it through. And oh, fantastic, Grant's here. Hello. I'm just explaining what Repair Café Wales is and how it works.
Great.
So it is great. So nice to see you. So like I said, a whole range of things, and just bring it along to one of the events, and then you will fill out a repair form, and one of the volunteers will try and fix it for you. Of course, there's no guarantees, but we've got a fairly good success rate. Would you say, Grant?
Pretty good, but the thing about fixing things is really a thirsty kind of work, don't you think?
Yeah. Yeah, see, we've got lots of tea and biscuits, so that can really keep power us through.
Well, it was actually that was your lead into the kettle.
Oh, I missed it. That was really good. I hate. No. That would have been great. So yeah, but the last kind of bit on that, the plug would be that if you are interested in this, you can find us by searching Repair Café Wales into Facebook. It's facebook.com/Repair Café Wales. And our events are listed there. But also we have our website, which is www.repaircafewales.org, and the events are listed there too. Obviously, with social distancing measures in place, a lot of events have been stopped operating for the last few months, but they're starting to get going again, doing outside events while we still can in the sun. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, please do come along and get involved with the project, either by bringing us something to fix or as a volunteer if you are interested in.
And I think to follow on from that, it's good to say that when we're able to really encourage people to start fixing themselves. So you won't just hand something over, you'll be involved to some extent in the fix.
Yes, yeah. Empowerment, I guess, is like a big, big goal. And that's kind of what the workshop today is here to do, because one of the items that comes in a lot, or we get a lot of kind of kitchenware, toasters, kettles, and things like that. And one of the most common problems with a kettle is that the switch isn't working. Obviously, a switch on a kettle gets a lot of use because you're constantly pushing the button, and sometimes you push it too hard, and these things have kind of a natural kind of fatigue rate to them. So it's a bit of an inevitability that the switch will break. Maybe you're lucky and it takes 20 years, but it will probably happen at some point. So we're going to talk through how to fix that, because it's quite easy and you can do it at home. So I've got two kettles here that we're going to kind of work with. We've got one which is a little bit older. I can probably angle the camera down and get a better light in a moment. Oops, there we go. So we have this one, which is a little bit older. I think 20 odd years old, but it still uses the same switching mechanism as this one, this Russell Hobbs one. I should have cleaned it before the workshop because it's a little bit embarrassing because this one's mine. I borrowed the other one from a friend who didn't mind going without. So yeah, so this one has a switch down here, and the older one has a switch up the top. Maybe that's a bit too bright. I can turn the light off there. So yes, and in fact, this one is broken. So we will start by figuring out, with most repairs, the first thing to do is figure out how to get into the casing. And everything is slightly different. Every brand is slightly different, even if it's two kettles are never going to be quite the same. And a lot of the time it involves hunting for screws. Now, I guess manufacturers don't want screws to be exposed because perhaps they look a bit ugly to people. So you'll often find them hidden behind things. And with this kettle, it was quite easy to find. I just lifted the lid and lo and behold, there were two screws just on the inside. I will lower this a little bit more.
But interesting, sometimes we get something in that is very difficult to access the screws.
Yeah.
And sometimes we even will say to people, look, if you want to risk it, it might crack just a sort of, so it doesn't look as good, but it can still be fixed.
Yeah.
We can do that with their permission.
So another thing that would be great to go over, I guess, is the tools that I'm going to be using, because it's very, very simple. I'm basically just going to be using a screwdriver, and there are lots of different kind of basic screwdriver kits you can get, which have a variety of adapters, and they're quite versatile and useful and not very expensive. So for this one, we need a Phillips head, which is basically for these cross screws. That's these ones just there that you can see. And we're going to be taking those apart, so I'll get right onto that. And you're going to see something kind of interesting with this, which is a bit tricksy. So I have taken this apart already. I took it apart on Friday just to make sure that I lost a screw into the kettle. That's not good. So another tip while you're doing this is to have something to hold your screws in. Sometimes the lid of your kind of adapter case is quite a good place. You can just pop your screws in there and you will not lose them. And another thing you can do if you're doing this maybe for the first time and want to feel more confident in the process, you can take pictures on your phone of kind of each step. So you remind yourself how to put it back together again, because that is a very easy thing to realize you can't do. Here we go. So I've taken those two off, and that's all it took for me to be able to basically remove this bracket. So look for the breaks in the plastic, look for the seams, and that really gives you an idea. So that was like this. I took those screws out, and now I can actually just pull this whole top bit back. Okay. Now, sometimes with plastic devices and casings, you have to force the plastic, and sometimes you shouldn't force the plastic. And knowing when to do that and how much force to apply is a little bit trial and error and experience. But if you're really having to pull something, it probably has another screw hidden somewhere. And that's what I experienced with this kettle, because I started to pull at this whole bracket. See, the whole thing is connected and one piece, but it wasn't coming part at the bottom. Now, the first time I did this as well, it's really worth noting that it hadn't been taken apart since manufacture probably. So I just used a flathead screwdriver, which is an old thing here. And I just had to get it in between the edge there and just kind of work it loose. I didn't have to apply that much force, and then the whole thing kind of started to come off. But yes, it was stuck down the bottom, and I did try and get the flathead screwdriver in and applied quite a lot of force until I realized, well, it's just not working. I didn't want to snap the plastic. So I turned it over. There are 3 screws on the bottom, and I'm going to quickly remove those for us now so we can have a look inside. Hold it there. Another quick fix tip with these kinds of screws is that sometimes if they're old, or if they've been, if you've used the wrong kind of size screwdriver to try and open them, it can kind of strip the head of the screw, and it makes it very difficult to get a lock as you're trying to to undo it. And what you can do is get a rubber band and actually put it over the screw head, and that will help you get more purchase with your screwdriver. So that's a good tip. So now I've taken that off, I should be able to remove the bottom. Again, screws flying everywhere. With these ones, I'm just going to leave the screws kind of hanging in this bottom bracket, but that comes off and it exposes some of the electronics below. And if we look at where we were before, so there's our handle, comes down the bottom, and there is a hidden screw just there, and that is holding this bracket on. So I have to remove that before I can go any further. Fairly simple. Let's just quickly do that.
And it's interesting because this really is what happens in a repair cafe.
Yeah, you just got to figure it out as you go along.
Yeah.
You can, some things are similar, but some things right. So as I pulled that out, actually I should probably just tilt this even more. I keep doing this, but just so you can really see everything that's going on here. So as I pulled that out, as I undid it, it sort of popped out naturally, and that can now come off completely, and we can put that over to the side so it's out the way. And now our switching part is completely exposed. There's a little bit of, I think that's probably limescale, it's just salt basically crystallized, and that's fine. Now that we can get to this quite nicely, what we're going to do is turn it around, and this is where the magic happens on a kettle. Do you see that silver strip just here? If you turn it that way, I think it looks a little bit like the Resistance logo from Star Wars. But yeah, that is a bimetallic thermostat, basically. It's a little switching mechanism made of metal. And the way it works is quite cool, because you might have thought that kettles, I mean, you can get probably much more expensive kettles that you'd have at a barista would have a more intelligent switch than this, which means you can boil the water to any temperature you like and really fine tune it. Well, not boil the water at 100 degrees, but you know where I'm going with that. You can heat the water to whatever temperature you want. This one is static, so it will always pop off at the same temperature. And how it works is that it's made of two different metals, and they're placed on top of one another. And as it heats up, one of those metals expands slightly more than the other, and that causes the shape to change. So we need to, this is the bit, by the way, that breaks when your kettle switch breaks. One thing I didn't do, Grant, at the beginning of this, which I really meant to do, was explain the fault. So I'm going to kind of go back and do that. I did explain it in the event description, but yeah, we'll talk about that quickly. So the fault we're trying to fix here is sometimes your kettle switch will turn on, and that's great. But when it's finished boiling, it never turns itself off. No. So you have to come along and remember to undo it. The other one that can happen is that you turn it on, it just turns off straight away. And then you have to stand there like a lemon for a minute and a half, whatever, and have your water boil. So that's the fault that we're fixing here.
And it's such a common problem. Stuff like this or Hoovers or whatever. There's an awful lot of plastic in landfill, which fix the switch, save the landfill. It's actually the same mechanism in a shower.
Oh, really? Cool.
Yeah, they use them in showers to stop the water getting too hot.
Nice. So what we're going to do is this thing here is when it breaks, essentially what we're going to do to fix it is all we have is just bend this metal. That's all we need to do, because at the moment it's very hard to see at this magnification, through the webcam, but it's got a slight bend in it already, and when it gets hot, it's going to pop the other way, and that disconnects the switch. Because if you see the switch is on top of it, if the switch is pushed down here, when this part pops back up, it's going to basically knock that switch off. So what we need to do is to get at that. So this one here, you can normally intuitively try and tell. So we've got a small kind of hole there where you can start to undo this piece of plastic. So it's actually two bits of plastic pushed together with these clips. Clips are good to work with because they're easy to undo and put back together. Glue is very annoying, and it can mean it's much more difficult to fix things. But all I'm doing is pushing. This is just actually a little soldering iron, but you anything with a pointy end, and you can just pop it in there and undo the little clips. You could do this at home yourself. Maybe I can get my finger in that one. Just to pull it around the back. Oops. It's a tiny bit fiddly here. And once I've done this, though, there we go. So that comes off and exposes that little metal switch. Now, Grant is going to be keeping an eye on the chat.
I just got something.
Actually. Yeah, so interrupt with any fun.
Yeah, so there's one. Do you guys have engineering backgrounds? I explained that like you do and some people do, but there's people are like woodwork, fixing bikes, sewing, so it's a real range.
Yeah.
And then one maybe more for this particular session is from Harrod. Can you repair circuit boards on electronic components, that is small devices or laptops?
So as you know, like with repair cafes, what you can repair is down to the kind of expertise of the volunteers who turn up at that specific cafe. So one thing you can do, if let's say we've got cafes from Newport to Fishguard to Mold all over Wales, and so if you find the one that's nearest you, and then you should be able to contact that cafe and ask in advance, hey, do you have someone that can repair this specific thing? So very, very small electronics are incredibly difficult because you need, they're often machined, they're not created by hand. So you have to have a very kind of fine magnifying glass and incredibly fine tipped soldering iron, which is quite specialist. So unfortunately, with really, really small electronic faults like that, sometimes the best thing to do is buy a new kind of board. Now, that's without context, that doesn't mean much, but sometimes these circuits are modulated or modular, so you can buy just one part, which is like the power regulator part is broken, so you can just buy that on eBay for £12 and install that new one. So that's one way to get around when electronic components break. Now,
so if the specific skills weren't there on the day, we might offer sort of signposting you to a website where you could order it sort of there and there on your phone, and then bring it to the next month's session. Yes,
that's sort of how it goes down. Correct. And you've already answered the other question about engineering backgrounds. I graduated in mechanical engineering, but I do research now. So, and I think it's true to say that even if you've got that kind of background, you don't necessarily know how a kettle or toaster works, right? So it's all very much learning as you go with the Repair Cafe kind of mentality. But what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to heat it up to show you how it works, because I think that would be quite a fun demonstration. I'm trying to get a good angle that shows this thing, but basically it would be that direction, and we want that bit to pop up. I might have to hold it across.
You're not far off there, actually.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's stop. Yeah, about there.
Well, what I'm going to do is, if I do hold it there, that might work. And I'm just going to heat it from a nice distance here. Oh, see that?
Wow.
So it just popped to be in the up direction.
So that was like the equivalent of the car chase in a movie, that bit.
That was the most exciting part, right? And as it cools down, it should soon. Actually, so I'm trying to hold it still whilst getting it. Oh, there we go. So it just popped back down. I don't know. Yeah. You might be able to even hear that going. So don't touch it if you do try that, because it's going to be hot now. So to actually conduct the fix, this is all we've done really, is take this part out. To conduct the fix, what you need to do is a bit of fine tuning. So we know that this thing needs to pop up in order to flick this switch off. So what you can do is very gently, you can even do this by hand, is to push this part so that it is already bent up a little bit more. So you can actually kind of forcibly bend it by hand so that when it goes into the snap position, it's got more push on it. Am I using the right words, Grant? Are you hearing what I'm saying? Are you getting this?
Yeah, I think so. And just to let you know, just over 20 minutes.
Ah, fab. Yeah, great. Well, we can move on to the next kettle as well, just to show people how to get into it. You don't actually have to completely remove this. When we took it out of this casing, you might have been able to get to it using a pair of pliers or a screwdriver or something and just tried to bend this. But when I repaired my own kettle this way, it took a bit of trial and error. So I bent it a little bit because I had the problem where it wouldn't stay down. So I had to bend it slightly the other way. And then I put it back in the kettle and it still wouldn't work. So then I took it out and bent it a bit more. And it was just a little bit of an iterative process. So yeah, that's how you do it, really. So I'd just bend this in the direction that it needs. I guess while you're doing this, it would be good to have taken some sort of photo, perhaps, of where it went in, so you remember which way around it's meant to go. But basically, that you can work it out intuitively by thinking, right, this switch is going to be down here, and I want the metal part to pop up to turn the switch off. So it's in the popped down position now, and it's going to pop up that way, which means I'm obviously going to want it in so that it pops up into that switch and turns it off when it gets too hot. So there we go. That's that one done. Now I could put this all back together. It would be fairly simple. I'd put this in place there into the housing. I get this part of the housing way around there. We've got nice little plastic clips. Oops. I say it's going to be easy, and then this happens. Right, where am I going with this? There we go. So that's the one. That's why it looked funny. So you just find where the two things marry. So there's actually a little prong on this one, and there's a little hole in this one. So that's going to pop down there. And then you can push it together with the clips again. And there we go. It's back in. And that's going to sit back in your kettle. And then you would put your bracket back on quite easily. So we'd put that bit through the hole. That bit would go round, sit on top. And then you put your screws back in. I won't go through that just because it's fairly laborious and not exciting. And we'll move instead on to kettle number 2. Aha. Let's have a look. Any interesting questions, Grant? We've got one on contacting.
Yeah, there's Tommy asked, how do we find our closest repair cafe? So I said go on repaircafewales.org, the website, and there's find an event. Yeah. Any other routes?
Yeah, you can email info@repaircafewales.org if you have a question that we could answer. And well, that's it. Those are the two main ones, I think. Or you could also message us on Facebook, actually. We've got 2 people who are very good at answering those Facebook messages nice and quickly. So hopefully someone should get back to you within a day at least to kind of point you in the right direction. So, kettle number 2. Yeah, what's that?
Just to say, so if anyone wants to find the closest event or get some more information, I've just put them in the chat now.
Good. Thanks, Grant. So here is this Russell Hobbs with the switch down the bottom. So we know it's going to be different. It's not switch on the handle, switch down the bottom, which means that my first port of call is to go in through the bottom. Now, these screws are not too problematic. It's not showing up very clearly, is it? But they are, if you can see, it's a star-shaped screw, and these are meant to be kind of anti-tamper screws because they're not basically they're not a flathead or a Phillips, so they're not the most common types. But these sets, these come with these kinds of starred heads anyway, so it's not like they're completely uncommon and you won't be able to find something to work with. So we'll put the new head in and we'll take the bottom off. Oops, my housemates are currently going without a kettle. So they're not best pleased.
So do you have any, if people try this themselves, do you have any kind of health and safety caveats?
Good question. If you're doing the iterative process of moving the metal slightly, bending it and putting it back in, then and then you're obviously going to be trying to boil water and perhaps see if it turns off. Well, obviously, you're going to have boiling water everywhere. So each time you do it, just pour some cold water in to make sure you don't catch yourself with any burns. All we're touching here is kind of mechanical components. We're not really getting into the electronics in the slightest. So it's kind of hard to go wrong. The worst thing that you'll do with this is kind of bend the metals so that it, isn't, it already wasn't working, but you could just bend it so it's still not working. It's, it's not too dangerous in that respect.
It's probably worth saying that when people take their electrical stuff to the repair cafes, free of charge is the pat testing, which basically after the repair, we'll check that your electrical stuff is the safety features work. So it cuts out if it goes wrong. So that's the sort of thing you get if you're in an office, you get pat tested, same thing.
So this one, you can see that the element that we're looking for is quite exposed, and it's over here on there. And actually, this one in my kettle is slightly burnt because I was trying to test it out with a bit of fire, and I got slightly too close. But yeah, it was quite easy. All I did is I got a flathead screwdriver. It may or may not have been this one, and I just used it to basically lift. Trying to get it so you can see the prong. So you can see that you've got the bit that's pronged here. So all I did was move that in there and just bent it slightly so that the prong was in a slightly different position. So there we go. And that was it. That's really it. So you can either push the prong in a little bit or pull it out a little bit and slightly calibrate it, and then put the bottom back on, put some water in, boil it, see if it works. So it really is that simple, and it's a really ingenious device. Actually, I remember when we learned how this worked, we were really baffled. We thought it would be done through some sort of sensor, which would then cut the circuit out. But this is quite ingenious and elegant. So yeah, and that's kind of the end of what I can show you with repairing kettles. So all the switches on kettles, I should say. There we go. So I'll come back like that. Right, there we are. I think that's mostly what we want to go through. What's come up in the chat since then?
Well, I was just going to say, actually, if anyone's got any questions now after the repairs, put them in the chat quickly, and you can sort of direct them at John now because he's not doing the actual repair. I would say this, that for me, the really big part of the repair cafes is that social stuff on a Saturday morning, going to Cardiff. I really miss it. It's been a real big part of life gone over lockdown. So, yeah, it's
nice to see you in Zoom meetings, but it's not as good as.
It's not as good. Yeah, there's no questions in the chat. I think they've all gone home to make tea, actually,
or to fix their kettles and make it, nice. But yeah, so watch this space, I guess, not this space necessarily, but Repair Café Wales space, because things are slowly starting up. I think it was just yesterday we had a cafe in Llantwit Major. I think it was a 2-hour-long session outside. Very cool.
And in Splot and Cattays, there's plenty of activity where people are one way or another picking up the stuff from someone's house, or they're dropping it off. So it's like a social distance repair cafe. No, not people in a hall. Penarth are doing the same, and I'm sure there's plenty of others who have either formally or informally doing the same thing.
So you can obviously, if any of those areas are your areas, you can find out how to get your item collected using the info@repaircafewales.org email address, and say, I've got this item. I'm in Bath. Can you connect me with that repair cafe? So that's one way to do it.
The other way is, loads of people watch, I think it's called the Repair Shop or something on telly. We're of a similar level of expertise, of course, but you might well know somebody during lockdown who's good, who's handy, sitting around, not in work, who you could ask to fix something. That's like a different route. Or you might feel now that you want to start your own repair cafe.
Yeah, that would be awesome as well. And we've got all of the starter kit if you are interested in doing something like this in your area. Perhaps not as a fixer. We need people have to organize the event. So that could be you. If you've got kind of a passion around this and sustainability, then you want to be involved with a project like this, then again, contact us, and we've got a starter kit we can help walk you through all of the process to set your own event up, how to get volunteers, venue, checklist of stuff. So yeah, we can. Excellent.
We just ran over time. We're on 31 minutes. Anant Gladys has said, thanks, I'll be in touch with the dead Dremel. So expect that on the repair cafe circuit.
Brilliant.
I guess that's about what we've got time for.
Yeah.
Do we get chucked off or?
No. We can end kind of as we please. But I think we had a bit of an hour sort of scheduled anyway, maybe perhaps. So we'll see. But yeah, that is the bit here. I'm just going to check my what I've got. A little bit of info here coming on. Okay. There was nothing that I don't think we mentioned. So thanks very much for coming along. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope it was useful for you and gave you perhaps a bit of confidence to start getting into stuff. YouTube is a great resource as well. So if you have something, just type your model number or your item into YouTube and see if someone's taken it apart. And the last thing is a great website called iFixit. And if you go on ifixit.com or .org, but just Google iFixit, and they've got loads of repair guides, a bit like recipe book, but for items. So it's super cool. So yeah, thank you very much. And we will end the broadcast now, I think. So that's great.
There's a couple more chats. Actually.
Good luck. Good luck. That's good.
Bernice has left us. What's that? 6 lemons or something?
No, that's an applauding hand.
Yeah.
Oh man. Oh, bless you.
Oh, great. Well, I'm really glad I managed to get on. Thanks to Megan's suggestion.
For helping with the chat and
so that was fine.
With you.
That's my first go at being a technical support. So there we are. Yeah. Or chat support. Yeah.
Cool. It might kick you out when I end the broadcast even, so I might give you a quick call afterwards. So thanks very much again.
I'm going to the River Wye to do some work. Actually, I'm off pretty much straight away. So I'll probably better if I catch you again.
Okay. That's it.
Thanks a lot, John.
Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Okay. Bye.